What if I told you that the 10 out of 10 perfectly swimming expensive lure in your tackle box is the exact reason you're not catching that monster pike? It sounds crazy, right? We spend all this money and time looking for baits with the best action. But today, we're diving deep into the cold, murky mind of the biggest pike. We're going to figure out why they stare at your bait and just turn away. And the answer has nothing to do with color, size, or brand. It's a fundamental misunderstanding of what a true trophy predator is looking for in near-freezing water. By the end of this video, you will look at your lure presentation in a completely different way. So let me ask you this right now. Do you believe a big old pike is an aggressive eating machine or a lazy, calculating opportunist? Let me know in the comments before we even start. For years, we've been told the same things. Match the hatch. Use bright, flashy colors to get their attention. Use a fast, erratic retrieve to trigger a reaction strike. And look, that advice isn't completely wrong. It works great for those aggressive 15 to 24-inch pike that seem to hit anything that moves. But the real giants, the ones that haunt your dreams, the 20-pound-plus queens of the lake, they didn't get that big by being reckless. They are survivors. They operate by a different set of rules, especially when the water gets cold. Everything in their world slows down to a crawl, and the single most important thing, more important than food, is conserving energy. We keep fishing for them like it's summer, and they're just not playing that game. First, let's talk about the cold water reality. We need to understand the metabolic shutdown. A pike is a cold-blooded creature. Its body temperature matches the water around it. When that temperature drops to, say, 38 degrees Fahrenheit, its whole system slows to a crawl. Digestion can take days or even weeks. They aren't hungry like we are. They don't need 3 square meals a day. They are in a state of minimal energy output. Think of a big pike in winter not as a hunter, but as a living battery, trying to keep its charge as full as possible for as long as possible. Visually, just imagine a chart showing a pike's heart rate plummeting as the water temperature icon drops. Every single action is measured against this energy-saving directive, and that's the first piece of the puzzle we usually get wrong. This brings us to the all-important energy equation. Every single movement a pike makes costs calories, a tiny flick of a fin, a turn of the head, and especially a high-speed chase. It's all a withdrawal from their energy bank. So when your lure comes zipping by, that old wise pike does some quick math in its head. It's a risk versus reward calculation. The potential energy gained from eating your lure must be significantly greater than the energy spent chasing and capturing it. In warm water, this math is easy. They're fired up, and the chase is no big deal. But in cold water, chasing a fast, healthy-looking bait is a huge gamble. What if it gets away? All that energy is wasted. It's a losing proposition. It's far better to wait for a sure thing. Think of an animation of a pike with a thought bubble weighing a tiny calories out icon against a large calories in icon. Now let's tackle the ambush misconception. We all have this image in our heads of a pike coiled up in the weeds, exploding out to destroy a passing bait. And yes, they do that. But in very cold water, they are far less ambush predator and far more opportunistic interceptor. The ambush implies a readiness to explode, to spend a burst of energy. The interceptor is different. It means they position themselves in a high-traffic area, a spot where a meal is likely to drift by, and they wait. They want the meal to come to them. They want to move as little as possible to acquire it. You can just picture it, a perfect underwater shot of a massive pike, lying perfectly still beside a submerged log, almost part of the landscape, simply watching the world go by and waiting. So, here's why reaction strikes often fail on giants in the cold. A reaction strike is designed to bypass the fish's brain. You make something move so fast and erratically that the fish hits it out of pure instinct, without thinking. This works on younger, dumber, and more energetic fish. But a big, old pike in cold water has one instinct that is more powerful than all the others, the instinct to conserve energy. That primary drive overrides the impulse to chase. It's less likely to make a split-second high-energy mistake on something that doesn't look like a guaranteed meal. So when your lure zips past its nose, the reaction isn't to strike. The reaction is to do nothing, to let that high-energy situation pass and wait for a better, easier opportunity. It's a game of patience, and they are the masters. Let's get into the predator's psychology. Consider the wisdom of a true survivor. A 35-inch pike could be 10 or 12 years old. Think about what it has seen in its lifetime. It has seen thousands of lures. It has felt the strange vibrations of braided line. It has seen its more aggressive brothers and sisters get hooked and pulled out of the water, never to return. It has survived nets, eagles, and other predators. This fish is not an idiot. It is a highly educated creature. It has learned over a decade to associate unnatural things, perfectly rhythmic sounds, repetitive flashes, things that move too perfectly, with danger. It's like an old veteran who has seen it all. You can't fool it with the same old tricks that work on the new recruits. And that leads to the fatal flaw in perfection. Your lure is an amazing piece of engineering. It wobbles with a perfect hypnotic rhythm. It flashes in the sun on every single turn. It never makes a mistake. It never falters. And that's the problem. No real living creature does that. A healthy, strong baitfish might swim fast, but its movements are still organic, slightly random. It reacts to its environment. Your perfectly swimming crankbait or swimbait is basically screaming, "I am a machine. I am not real." To a predator that has spent 10 years studying the subtle movements of real food, your perfect lure is the most unnatural thing in the lake. It's a red flag. It's like a person doing a perfect robot dance in the middle of a forest. It just doesn't belong. So if they're not looking for perfection, what are they looking for? They are constantly on the hunt for weakness. This is the absolute core of a predator's mindset. A true predator does not want a fair fight. It wants the easiest possible meal to maximize its energy profit. It's looking for the one minnow that got separated from the school. It's looking for the perch that's struggling to stay upright. It's looking for the sick, the injured, the disoriented, and the dying. Why? Because a weak creature cannot escape. A weak creature is a guaranteed meal. It is the definition of a low-risk, high-reward target. This is what a trophy pike is programmed to seek out. It's not looking for a chase, it's looking for a cleanup. Let's put it another way. Your lure is shouting, "I am a trap." Imagine that perfectly rhythmic, fast-moving lure again. To a wise old pike, that lure is like a person walking through a quiet library, clapping their hands in a steady rhythm. It's loud, it's obnoxious, it's completely out of place. It puts every creature in the area on high alert. That perfect action, which we paid so much money for, is actually an alarm bell. It signals something artificial and potentially dangerous. The pike sees it, registers it as not food, and then completely ignores it. It has learned that things that perfect are not to be trusted. We think we're ringing the dinner bell, but we're actually sounding the fire alarm for the smartest fish in the lake. This leads us right into the common mistakes we all make, and the biggest one is the sin of overworking the lure. As anglers, we get impatient. We feel like if we're not actively doing something, twitching, ripping, cranking, then we're not really fishing. We impart so much life, so much energy, so much health into our presentation. Picture yourself on a calm, cold morning. The water is like glass, and you're just relentlessly ripping a jerkbait or burning a spinnerbait back to the boat. You're creating a massive disturbance. You're presenting a bait that looks like it's in a panic, full of energy. And as we've established, that is the exact opposite of what a lethargic, energy-conserving giant is looking for. We are working way too hard, King. And with overworking comes the speed trap. This is probably the #1 mistake in all of cold water fishing. We fish too fast, period. That retrieve speed that was getting you bit all summer long is now a supersonic blur to a cold, slow pike. Its brain and body just can't process it and react in time. Even if it wanted to eat your lure, it literally can't make the decision and move to intercept it before it's gone. Asking a cold pike to chase a fast lure is like asking a person who just woke up to immediately sprint a 100-meter dash. It's not going to happen. You have to slow your presentation down to a speed that feels painfully, ridiculously slow. If you think you're reeling slowly, you probably need to reel even slower. Then there's the curse of the hot spot. We find a great-looking spot, a deep weed edge, a rocky point, and we get locked in. We'll stand there and pepper it with casts, over and over, with the same lure and the same retrieve. That trophy pike is probably there. It's probably watching you. The first cast might have made it curious. The second cast made it aware. By the third or fourth cast, it's not curious anymore. It's educated. It has now identified that strange, repetitive object. It has confirmed it is not food and has now classified it as a potential annoyance or threat. You haven't just failed to catch it, you've trained it to ignore your lure for the rest of the day. Pounding a spot is one of the worst things you can do for a big, smart fish. But the biggest mistake of all is ignoring the power of the pause. This is the secret ingredient. This is where the magic happens in cold water. But most anglers are too impatient. We reel, we twitch, and we keep the lure moving. The pause, however, is the ultimate trigger. A lure that suddenly stops and just hangs there in the water, or slowly sinks, is imitating a stunned or dying baitfish. It is the universal signal for "I am helpless." It's the dinner bell, but our brains tell us to keep moving. The idea of letting your lure sit completely still for 10, 20, or even 30 seconds feels like we're wasting time. But in reality, during that long pause, the pike is looking, judging, and making the decision to finally move in and eat that easy meal. So what's the solution? It's embracing the dying bait philosophy. This is a complete mental shift. From this moment on, your job as a cold water angler is not to imitate a healthy fish. Your job is to imitate a fish that is having the absolute worst day of its life. It's confused, it's injured, it's struggling, it's about to die. You have to put yourself in the mindset of that creature. What would it do? It would probably give a short, panicked burst of energy, then stop, exhausted. It would list to one side, it would slowly sink toward the bottom. It would give a final, weak little twitch. That is the story you need to tell with your lure, a story of vulnerability. Let's apply this to a jerkbait. This is the perfect lure for this technique, but you have to transform how you use it. Forget the standard jerk-jerk pause cadence you use in the spring. Instead, try this. Give it one good, hard jerk to get it down to its running depth. And then, wait, just wait. Let that suspending jerkbait sit perfectly motionless in the water column. Count to 20, count to 30. It will feel like an eternity. Then give it the tiniest, most subtle twitch you can manage with your rod tip. You don't want the lure to dart, you just want it to quiver slightly. You are telling that pike, "I'm still alive but barely, come and get me." This is how you trigger the giants. Now let's talk about that big, beautiful, expensive swim bait. We love to just cast it out and reel it in, watching that tail kick perfectly. Stop doing that. In cold water, that's just another perfect, unnatural machine. Instead, turn it into a bottom-dwelling meal. Cast it out and let it sink all the way to the bottom. Let it sit there for 10 seconds. Then, instead of lifting it, just slowly drag it along the bottom for a few inches by pulling your rod to the side. Then stop. Let it sit again. You are imitating a dying baitfish that has given up and is now lying on the bottom, kicking up little puffs of silt. It is the single easiest meal that pike could possibly imagine. It requires zero chase. Even a simple, old-school casting spoon can be transformed with this philosophy. Most people just cast and retrieve a spoon with a steady wobble. That's fine for active fish. For a lethargic giant, you want to use its natural flutter. So, cast it out, let it sink a bit, then lift your rod tip up smoothly. This will make the spoon sweep upwards. Then drop your rod tip and let the spoon fall on a semi-slack line. That flutter on the way down is the key. It perfectly imitates the flash and tumble of a dying shiner or shad. The pike will often watch it flutter all the way down and then just pick it up off the bottom once it stops moving. The strike will be nothing more than a slight tick in your line. If you really want to take this to the next level, you need to learn the dead stick revolution. This is the ultimate technique in patience, and it can be absolutely deadly. It's exactly what it sounds like. You cast your lure out. A fluke-style soft plastic or a suspending jerkbait is perfect for this, and you do nothing. You just let it sit for a minute, maybe even 2 minutes. You let the natural wind and current be the only things that give the lure any action. It is the most realistic imitation of a stunned and dying baitfish you can possibly create. It requires incredible mental discipline not to reel it in, but for a truly negative mood pike, this is often the only presentation that will get them to bite. When you start fishing this slowly, your location becomes everything. It has to be. When the fish won't move more than a few feet to eat your lure, you have to put the lure directly on their head. This is where your electronics, your fish finders, become your most important tool. You are no longer just casting blindly to good-looking cover. You are using side imaging or live sonar to find a specific, individual fish. You mark it, you line up your boat, and you make a precise, deliberate cast that puts your dying lure right in its strike zone. You're not hunting for fish anymore. You are hunting for one fish at a time. It's a sniper's game, not a shotgun approach. Now here's a controversial point. Downsizing isn't always the answer. The common wisdom for cold water is go small and slow. The slow part is right. The small part can be wrong if you're hunting for a true giant. Remember the energy equation. A big pike still wants a big meal. It is far more energy efficient for a 20-pound pike to eat one 12-inch bait than it is to eat 6 2-inch baits. They still want the most calories for the least effort. The key is not to present a smaller lure. The key is to present a big lure that looks incredibly slow, stupid, and vulnerable. A big dying baitfish is the ultimate prize. Don't be afraid to throw that huge glide bait. Just work it painfully slowly with very long pauses. Ultimately, the biggest change you need to make is not in your tackle box. It's the mental shift between your ears. You have to stop thinking of yourself as an aggressive hunter trying to force a bite. You must become a patient trapper. You are carefully choosing your location, setting your trap, which is your slow-moving, vulnerable lure, and then waiting for the laziest, most opportunistic fish in the lake to make a mistake and wander into it. You have to embrace the stillness. You have to find enjoyment in the patience of it all. Pike fishing in cold water is a chess game, not a foot race, and the player who makes the slowest, most deliberate moves is the one who wins. So let's wrap this up. It turns out the biggest pike aren't ignoring your lure because it's the wrong color or the wrong size. They're ignoring it because its perfect action screams danger and too much work to their cold, calculating, energy-saving brain. The turning point, the real aha moment here, is realizing you have likely been trying to imitate a healthy, strong fish for a predator that only wants a sick, weak, or dying one. For years, many of us have been playing the game completely wrong. This simple shift in mindset changes everything. It means slowing way down, having more patience than you thought possible, and thinking less about creating action and more about creating vulnerability. It's not about making the pike react. It's about convincing the pike that your lure is the easiest, most calorie-rich meal it will see all winter. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this gives you a new weapon for your next trip on the cold water. If this blew your mind a little, do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe for more tips that go against the grain. Now, I really want to hear from you. What's the longest you have ever intentionally paused your lure during a retrieve? Be honest, 30 seconds? A minute? Let's discuss this whole patient approach down in the comments.